The night after the coup, Zarathiel could not sleep. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, while her mind played the same images over and over. Danny moving through the soldiers like death itself. The void blade cutting through armor as if it were cloth. The look in his eyes, cold, empty, utterly focused. And then, when it was over, the way he had looked at her, almost apologetic, almost human again. She sat up and looked across the room. Danny was in his usual spot on the floor, but he was not sleeping. He sat with his back against the wall, watching the door. The void blade lay across his knees, still dark, still hungry for light. "You're awake," he said quietly. "How could I sleep?" She pulled her robe around her shoulders and walked over to sit near him, keeping some distance between them. "I have questions, I know." He didn't look at her. "You deserve answers. What is the Shadow Course?" Danny was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was flat, reciting facts without emotion. The Shadow Course is the Terran Coalition's most classified special operations unit. We handle missions that don't officially exist. Assassinations, sabotage, extraction of high-value targets. We operate behind enemy lines, sometimes for months at a time. We're trained to be invisible, to be no one, to become whatever the mission requires. He finally looked at her. "During the war with your empire, my unit was responsible for 43 operations on Valorian-controlled worlds. We killed politicians, generals, scientists, anyone who could hurt the war effort." Zarathiel felt cold despite her robe. "You killed my people." "Yes, no excuses. No justification. Just the simple truth. And now you're married to a Valorian princess." "Yes, she should hate him. She should call the guards, have him arrested, demand his execution for crimes against the Empire. That would be the proper response. That would be what her father would expect." But she remembered other things too. Danny helping the servants. Danny healing the wounded bird. Danny sleeping on the floor so she could have the bed. The man who had endured months of mockery without complaint, who had shown kindness to everyone he met. "Who are you really?" she asked. "The killer I saw tonight, or the man I've lived with for 3 months?" Danny's expression shifted, and for the first time since the coup, she saw uncertainty in his eyes. "I don't know anymore," he admitted. "I used to think I was just a soldier, a weapon to be pointed at enemies. But after so many missions, so much death, I started to wonder if that was all I could ever be." He set the void blade aside, as if putting distance between himself and what it represented. "When the treaty was announced and they asked for volunteers, I saw a chance. A chance to be something other than a killer. A chance to prove, maybe just to myself, that I could build something instead of destroying it." "So you played the humble maintenance worker." "I am a maintenance worker," Danny said with a small smile. "That training was real. Shadow Corps operatives learn dozens of cover identities. I spent 2 years as a technician on a deep space station before I ever held a weapon. I know how to fix things." His smile faded. "I thought maybe I could fix myself too." Zarathiel studied him in the dim light. The scars on his arms, the calluses on his hands, the weariness in his eyes that she had mistaken for simple humility. 237 operations, she said. "That's what you told Vexaran." "Yes. How many people have you killed?" Danny's jaw tightened. "I stopped counting after the first 100. It was the only way I could keep going." The words hung in the air between them. Zarathiel thought of all the families who had lost loved ones because of this man. All the grief and pain he had caused. He was a monster by any measure, and yet he had also saved her life. He had protected the palace from traitors. He had asked for nothing in return except the chance to be something more than what he was. "The Terran Coalition sent you to protect me," she said slowly. But you could have revealed yourself at any time. You could have demanded respect, shown your strength, made the nobles fear you. Why didn't you? Because fear doesn't build bridges, Danny replied. I wanted your people to see that humans could be more than warriors, that we could be humble and kind and patient, that we could be worthy allies, not just useful weapons. He looked at her directly, his eyes open and honest in a way she had never seen before. I wanted you to see that too. Zarathiel felt something shift inside her chest. All this time, she had been watching Danny endure insults and mockery, thinking him weak. But he had been strong in a way she had never understood. Strong enough to hide his true power. Strong enough to choose kindness over violence. Strong enough to absorb hatred without reflecting it back. You're a fool, she said quietly. Danny's eyebrows rose. Your Highness? You could have had respect. You could have had power. Instead, you chose to be mocked and humiliated for months. All for some idealistic notion of building bridges. She moved closer to him, close enough to see the flecks of silver in his brown eyes. You're a fool, Danny Cole, but I think I understand you now. Danny was very still. And what do you understand, Your Highness? Zarathiel reached out and took his hand. His fingers were warm and rough against her smooth skin. I understand that you are exactly what you pretended to be, she said. A man who fixes things. A man who heals what is broken. You just happen to also be the deadliest soldier in the Terran military. For the first time since she had known him, Danny looked genuinely surprised. You're not angry? Oh, I'm furious, Zarathiel said with a slight smile. You lied to me for 3 months. You let me think you were helpless when you could have protected yourself at any moment. You made me worry about you. She squeezed his hand. But you also saved my life. And you showed me what true strength looks like. I think perhaps that earns you some forgiveness. Danny's expression softened. The cold killer she had seen in the throne room was gone, replaced by the gentle man she had come to know. I never meant to deceive you, Your Highness. Not about who I am inside. The cover was just a shell. Everything I shared with you, the stories, the conversations, the kindness, that was real. Zarathiel, she said. What? We are married, Danny Cole. You saved my life. I think you can use my name. For the first time that night, Danny smiled. It was the same gentle, uncertain smile she had first seen at their wedding, and she realized now that it had always been genuine. Zarathiel, he said, testing the name. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for giving me a chance. Outside, the first light of dawn was breaking over Valoria Prime. The palace was still in chaos, with guards securing every corridor and officials demanding answers. Soon, her father would return, and there would be questions to answer and judgments to make. But for this moment, Zarathiel sat beside her husband in the quiet of their room, holding his hand in hers, and felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Hope. Emperor Kelver returned to Valoria Prime 3 days after the failed coup. His warship descended from orbit like an angry star, and within hours the palace was filled with imperial investigators, military commanders, and political advisors. The traitors were rounded up quickly. Lord Vexaran and his conspirators had expected to control the throne by the time the emperor returned. Instead, they found themselves in chains, awaiting judgment for their crimes. But the emperor was not interested in the traitors. He was interested in the human who had defeated them. Danny stood before the throne, wearing simple clothes despite Zarathiel's insistence that he dress formally. The great hall was filled with nobles and officials, all watching with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Word of the massacre in the throne room had spread throughout the empire. The humble maintenance worker was humble no more. Emperor Calver studied Danny with cold violet eyes. He was taller than his daughter, broader, with silver hair pulled back from a face that showed no emotion. Commander Daniel Cole, the Emperor said. Shadow Course, Calcine, Reaper. Yes, Your Majesty. You killed 46 of Lord Vexaran's soldiers in under 4 minutes. You saved my daughter's life. You protected my throne from traitors. Yes, Your Majesty. The Emperor leaned forward. You also lied to my empire. You pretended to be a common worker while hiding your true nature. You married my daughter under false pretenses. These are serious crimes. Danny met the Emperor's gaze without flinching. I understand, Your Majesty. I was prepared to accept whatever judgment you decide. Were you? The Emperor's voice was cold. And what of the treaty? What of the peace between our peoples? If I execute you for deception, the Terran Coalition will see it as an act of war. The Coalition knew who I was when they sent me, Danny replied calmly. They knew the risk. If my death is the price of my deception, they will accept it. The treaty will survive. A murmur ran through the crowd. Zarathiel felt her chest tighten. She had not spoken to Danny about this possibility. She had assumed her father would see reason, would recognize what Danny had done for their family, but Emperor Kelver was not known for mercy. You would accept death? The Emperor asked. Just like that? I've been ready to die since my first mission, Danny said simply. That's what soldiers are for. If my death serves the peace between our peoples, then it has meaning. The hall was silent. Even the nobles who had mocked Danny for months seemed uncertain now. This was not the behavior of a criminal or a coward. This was the behavior of a true warrior. Emperor Calver was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. It was a deep sound, rumbling through the hall like distant thunder. The nobles looked at each other in confusion. The Emperor had not laughed in public since his wife had died, decades ago. You humans, Calver said, shaking his head. We spent 30 years at war with you, and we never understood what we were fighting. We thought you were weak because you were small and short-lived. We thought you were primitive because you lacked our gifts. He stood from his throne and walked down the steps, until he was standing directly in front of Danny. Despite their difference in height, there was something equal about the way they faced each other. But you are not weak, the Emperor continued. You are simply strong in ways we failed to recognize. You endure. You adapt. You choose your battles with wisdom and fight them with everything you have. He placed a hand on Danny's shoulder. You could have revealed yourself at any time. You could have demanded respect and forced your position with fear. Instead, you chose to be humble. You chose to serve. You chose to protect my daughter, not through displays of power, but through quiet dedication. The Emperor turned to address the crowd. This human taught us something that 30 years of war could not. Strength is not about dominance. It is about choice. Commander Cole chose kindness when he could have chosen violence. He chose patience when he could have chosen pride. And when the moment came, he chose to risk his life for people who had treated him with nothing but contempt. He looked back at Danny. That is not deception, Commander. That is honor. And it will be recognized. The Emperor drew his ceremonial blade, the same type that Vexaran had carried during the coup. But instead of raising it in threat, he reversed it, offering the handle to Danny. Kneel, Commander Cole. Danny hesitated for just a moment, then lowered himself to one knee. The Emperor touched the blade to each of his shoulders. By my authority as Emperor of Valoria, I name you Lord Daniel Cole of the Imperial Court. You are granted full noble status, with all the rights and privileges that entails. You are no longer a stranger in our empire. You are family. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. A human granted noble status? It was unprecedented. It was unthinkable, but no one dared to protest. Not after what they had seen. Danny rose to his feet, his expression carefully neutral. But Zarathiel saw the shine in his eyes. After months of mockery and isolation, he had been accepted at last. She stepped forward and took her place beside him, slipping her hand into his. The Emperor watched them with something that might have been approval. "Take care of my daughter, Lord Cole," Kelver said quietly. She was chosen well, even if she did not know it at the time. Danny bowed his head. "I will protect her with my life, Your Majesty, and I will try to be worthy of her choice." Later that evening, Zarathiel found Danny in the garden where he still cared for injured animals. The bird he had healed months ago was there, now fully recovered, hopping about in a small enclosure. "Lord Danny Cole," she said, sitting beside him. "How does it feel?" "Strange," he admitted. "I spent my whole career trying to be invisible. Now everyone in the Empire knows my name. Does that bother you?" Danny considered the question carefully. "No," he said finally, "because I didn't earn it through violence. I earned it through patience, through service. That feels different." Zarathiel leaned against his shoulder. After everything that had happened, the gesture felt natural, comfortable. "You changed things, you know," she said. "Not just in the palace, but everywhere. Humans are no longer seen as primitives or pets. They're seen as allies, as equals. That was the goal," Danny said with a small smile. "Though I admit I thought it would take longer." "And what will you do now? Now that your mission is complete?" Danny turned to look at her. In his eyes, she saw the killer who had saved her life, the soldier who had carried the weight of 200 missions, the gentleman who healed wounded birds and slept on floors. "I thought I might stay," he said quietly. "If you'll have me." Zarathiel felt warmth spread through her chest. She took his hand, the hand that had held a sword, that fixed machines, that cared for helpless creatures. "I think," she said, "that I would like that very much." Above them, the stars of Valoria Prime blazed in the night sky. Somewhere out there, humans and Valorians would continue to build bridges, to forge alliances, to learn from each other. And it had all started with a common man who drew his sword not to conquer, but to protect. That, in the end, was what humans truly were. Not weak, not primitive, but dangerous enough to spare their enemies and wise enough to know when to do so. The Great Hall of the Kethrani Empire was the largest room Princess Valera had ever known. Golden pillars rose toward a ceiling painted with the faces of ancient emperors. Thousands of nobles sat in curved rows, their violet skin glowing softly under the crystal lights. They wore robes of silver and black, the colors of power. They looked down at her like she was something dirty on their floor. Valera stood alone in the center of the hall. She wore the white dress of an unbonded princess, simple and plain compared to the rich clothing around her. Her hands were steady, but her heart beat so fast she thought everyone could hear it. Today was the day that would decide her future. Today, the noble houses would answer her bonding petition. The Kethrani had strict laws about royal succession. A princess could not inherit the throne without a consort from a recognized noble house. It was an old law, made in ancient times to keep power within certain families. Valera's father, Emperor Torvan, had tried to change it before he died. He had failed. Now Valera stood before the same nobles who had hated her father's choice of wife. Her mother had been a commoner, a teacher from a small colony world. She had no noble blood, no family name that mattered. The great houses had never forgiven the emperor for loving her, and they had never accepted the daughter that love produced. High Counselor Brennan rose from his seat at the front of the hall. He was an old Kethrani with deep lines on his face and cold eyes that showed no kindness. He held a golden scroll in his hands. "We have received the bonding petition of Princess Valera, daughter of Emperor Torvan," he said. His voice echoed through the silent hall. "The noble houses have considered her request. We shall now hear their answers." Valera lifted her chin and tried to look strong. She knew what was coming. She had known for weeks, but she had hoped, foolishly, that at least one house might see past her blood. Lord Mevin of House Soreth stood first. He was tall and proud, with silver hair that fell past his shoulders. His house was one of the oldest and most powerful in the Empire. House Soreth refuses the petition, he said. He did not look at Valera as he spoke. The bloodlines are incompatible. A union would weaken our house beyond repair. Valera felt the words like a slap, but she did not let her face change. She had practiced this. She had stood before her mirror and made herself into stone. Lord Cashin of House Velther stood next. House Velther refuses. The princess carries common blood. This cannot be overlooked. Lady Sareth of House Morwen followed. House Morwen refuses. We have no interest in joining our name to one so tainted. One by one, they rose. 7 great houses, 7 refusals. Each one gave a different reason, but the meaning was the same. She was not good enough. She would never be good enough. Her mother's blood was a poison that no title could cure. When the last house finished speaking, the hall fell silent. Valera stood in that silence, feeling smaller than she had ever felt in her life. She was a princess of the Kethrani Empire, daughter of a beloved emperor. And she was worth nothing to these people. From the shadows at the side of the hall, she saw her uncle watching. Prince Councillor Draven had the same violet skin as all Kethrani, but his eyes were darker, hungrier. He was her father's younger brother, and he had wanted the throne since before Valera was born. With no consort, she could not inherit. The path to power would be his. He smiled at her. It was not a kind smile. Valera turned and walked out of the great hall. She did not run, though she wanted to. She kept her steps slow and her back straight. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. The corridors of the palace were long and empty. Valera walked through them like a ghost, past paintings of ancestors who would have been ashamed of her, past windows that looked out on a city full of people who did not want her to rule them. She walked until she reached the one place in the palace that felt like hers. The observatory was at the top of the highest tower. It was a small room filled with star charts and old books. A great telescope pointed toward the sky, and through the glass ceiling, Valera could see the endless darkness of space dotted with distant suns. This was where she came when the world became too heavy. This was where she felt closest to her father. She sat on the cold floor and finally let herself cry. That was how Arn found her. The old scholar had served her father for 40 years. His violet skin had faded to pale lavender with age, and he walked with a cane that clicked against the stone floor. But his eyes were still sharp, still full of wisdom and warmth. "I heard what happened," he said softly. He lowered himself to sit beside her, his old joints protesting. "I'm sorry, child." Valera wiped her eyes. "They hate me, Orin. They have always hated me." "They hate what you represent," Orin said. "Your father loved a common woman. He showed them that their precious bloodlines meant less than they believed. They cannot forgive that. It does not matter why they hate me. The result is the same. Without a consort, I cannot inherit. My uncle will take the throne, and everything my father worked for will be destroyed." Arn was quiet for a long moment. He looked up at the stars through the glass ceiling, his old face thoughtful. "There may be another way," he said finally. Valera looked at him. "What do you mean?" "There is an old law. Very old. It has not been used in centuries, but it was never removed from the books." Arn pulled a small data tablet from his robe and handed it to her. "The Pact of Open Bonds. It was created in the early days of the Galactic Compact, when the Kethrani first made contact with other species. It allows a royal to seek a consort from any species within the compact." Valera read the words on the screen. Her heart began to beat faster. "Any species?" "Any species that has signed the compact agreements." The law was meant to build alliances with other races. It was used a few times in ancient days, then forgotten. Oren paused. The noble houses cannot refuse a consort chosen under this law. It is older than their houses, older than their traditions. But which species would accept? Valera asked. The elder races look down on us almost as much as our nobles look down on my mother's blood. The Vorin think we are too emotional. The Scylothi think we are too warlike. None of them would agree to a union with a half-blood princess. Oren smiled, just a little. There is one race that might. They are new to the compact. They have no old prejudices, no ancient hatreds. They are considered primitive by most, but they have shown themselves to be surprising. Valera felt hope stir in her chest, fragile and painful. Who? The humans, Oren said. They have an embassy here, on the capital world. They are young and eager to prove themselves. And they do not know enough about our politics to refuse you for the right reasons. Valera looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there was a small blue world called Earth. She had read about humans in her studies. They were short-lived and physically weak compared to most species. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 100 years ago. The galaxy considered them children, but children could be brave. Children could be kind. And right now, Valera needed someone brave and kind more than she needed someone powerful. Send a message to the human embassy, she said. I want to meet with them. Oren nodded and rose to his feet. At the door, he paused. Your father would be proud of you, Valera. You have his courage. Valera did not answer. She just kept looking at the stars, wondering if somewhere out there, a human might be willing to save a princess that no one else wanted. Commander Ethan Cole was having a very bad day when the royal summons arrived. He sat in his small office at the human embassy, surrounded by piles of paperwork that never seemed to get smaller. The room was barely big enough for his desk and 2 chairs. The walls were plain gray metal, and the only decoration was a small photograph of Earth that he had brought from home. It showed the planet from space, blue and green and beautiful, hanging in the darkness like a precious jewel. Ethan was 34 years old, with short brown hair and tired eyes. He had been a Navy pilot back on Earth, flying missions through asteroid fields and defending cargo ships from pirates. He was good at staying calm when everything went wrong. That skill had gotten him assigned to the diplomatic corps, sent to an alien empire to represent humanity. It was not the job he had wanted. But someone had to do it. The human embassy on the Kethrani capital world was small and unimportant. The Kethrani tolerated humans the way a grown adult tolerates a noisy child. They allowed basic trade agreements and nothing more. Ethan spent most of his time solving problems that nobody cared about. Lost tourists who could not find their hotels. Merchants who had been cheated in the markets. Small things that made no difference to anyone. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Maya Ortiz, knocked on his door and entered without waiting for an answer. Maya was a short woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had sharp eyes that missed nothing and a way of speaking that could cut through steel. You need to see this, she said. She held a datapad in her hand, and her face showed an expression Ethan had never seen before. She looked confused and a little scared. What is it? Ethan asked. Another tourist stuck in the wrong bathroom? A royal summons. Maya handed him the pad. From Princess Valera herself. She wants to meet with you. Tomorrow. At the palace. Ethan stared at the words on the screen. He read them 3 times to make sure he understood them. In 5 years of working on this planet, no member of the Kethrani royal family had ever acknowledged that humans existed. They had never received so much as a polite greeting card. This has to be a mistake, he said. I checked. 3 times. The seal is real. The codes are valid. The princess wants to see us. Ethan leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes. He had learned early in this job that surprises were rarely good. When something strange happened, it usually meant trouble was coming. "Get Dr. Shaw," he said. "We need to know what we are walking into." Dr. Benjamin Shaw was the embassy's cultural advisor. He was an old man with white hair and thick glasses that made his eyes look too big for his face. He had spent 30 years studying the Kethrani, learning their language and their history and their strange customs. He knew more about them than most Kethrani knew about themselves. He sat in Ethan's office an hour later, reading the summons with great interest. His wrinkled face showed excitement instead of worry. "Fascinating," he muttered. "Absolutely fascinating. I never thought I would see this day." "See what day?" Maya asked. She stood by the door with her arms crossed, looking unhappy. "What does a princess want with us?" Dr. Shaw looked up at them with bright eyes. "I have been following the court news. Princess Valera is the daughter of the late emperor. Her mother was a commoner, which makes her blood impure in the eyes of the noble houses. She needed to find a consort from a noble family to claim her inheritance. Yesterday, every noble house in the empire refused her petition." "So she has no consort," Ethan said. "What does that have to do with us?" "There is an old law, the Pact of Open Bonds. It allows a royal to seek a consort from any species in the Galactic Compact." Dr. Shaw smiled. "Humans are members of the Compact. We are the newest members, but we are still members." Maya's eyes went wide. "She wants to marry a human? That is crazy." "It is desperate," Dr. Shaw corrected. "But desperation can create opportunity. If a human became consort to a Kethrani princess, it would change everything for our species. We would have a voice in one of the oldest empires in the galaxy. We would gain protections and standing that would take centuries to earn on our own." Ethan stood up and walked to his window. Outside, the alien city stretched toward the horizon, full of buildings that touched the clouds and vehicles that flew through the air like birds. It was beautiful and strange and completely foreign. He had never felt at home here. He did not think he ever would. And what would happen to the human who agreed? He asked quietly. What would his life look like? Dr. Shaw was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. He would leave Earth behind. He would live in an empire that considers his species primitive and inferior. He would face hatred and contempt every day of his life. It would not be easy. Maya stepped forward. Ethan, you cannot be thinking about this. We do not even know what she wants. This could be a trap. The Kethrani have never shown us any kindness. Why would they start now? They would not, Ethan said. But she is not them. She is a half-blood princess that her own people rejected. Maybe she knows what it feels like to be looked down on. The next day, Ethan put on his best uniform and traveled to the palace with Maya and Dr. Shaw. The royal complex was the most impressive structure he had ever seen. It was made of white stone that seemed to glow from within, with towers that stretched toward the sky like fingers reaching for the stars. Guards in golden armor watched them with suspicious eyes as they passed through the gates. Inside, the palace was even more overwhelming. Every surface was decorated with carvings and paintings and precious metals. Nobles walked through the halls in their fine robes, and every single one of them looked at the humans with disgust. Ethan heard whispers as they passed. Primitive, savage, animals. He kept his face calm and his back straight. He had been underestimated his whole life. He was used to it. A servant led them to a private meeting room. It was smaller than Ethan expected, with simple furniture and a large window that looked out on a garden. Princess Valera stood by the window, waiting for them. She was beautiful in a way that was completely alien. Her skin was a soft violet color, and her eyes were large and silver, like mirrors reflecting starlight. She was tall and thin, with long dark hair that fell past her shoulders. She wore a simple blue dress, nothing like the fancy robes of the nobles outside. She looked at them with hope in her eyes. It was the hope of someone who had nothing left to lose. "Thank you for coming," she said. Her voice was soft but steady. "I know this request must seem strange to you." "Your Highness," Ethan said, bowing his head. "We are honored by your invitation. How can we help you?" Valera was quiet for a moment. Then she began to speak, telling them everything. She told them about her father and her mother. She told them about the noble houses and their hatred. She told them about the old law and why she had summoned them here. "I need a consort," she said finally, "or I lose everything. My throne, my father's legacy, my freedom. My uncle will take power, and he will destroy everything my father tried to build. I am asking humanity to consider a political union. I am asking if one of you might be willing to stand beside me." The room was silent. Maya looked shocked. Dr. Shaw looked thoughtful. Ethan looked at the princess and saw past her alien features to the person underneath. He saw someone scared and alone, fighting against a world that wanted to crush her. "You are asking me to marry you," he said slowly. "I am asking if humanity might be willing to save a Phi, princes that no one else would touch." Valera met his eyes without looking away. "I do not expect love. I do not expect anything except honesty and partnership. I am offering you the same in return." Ethan thought about Earth, so far away. He thought about his family, his friends, his life. He thought about everything he would lose. Then he thought about everything humanity might gain. "I need time," he said. "I need to speak with my government. This is not a decision I can make alone." Valera nodded. "I understand. Take the time you need. But please know that time is something I do not have much of. My uncle is already moving against me. Every day that passes makes my position weaker." As they left the palace, Maya grabbed Ethan's arm. "Please tell me you are not actually considering this." Ethan looked back at the white towers reaching toward the sky. Somewhere inside, a princess was waiting for an answer that could change everything. "I do not know what I am considering," he said, "but I know I cannot say no without thinking about it first." The message to Earth took 3 days to send and receive. Faster than light communication was expensive, and the human embassy did not have priority access. Ethan spent those 3 days in his small office, unable to sleep, unable to think about anything except the choice that waited for him. He thought about his mother back in Ohio, growing old in the house where he had grown up. He thought about his younger sister and her 2 children, who called him Uncle Ethan and sent him drawings of spaceships that looked nothing like real spaceships. He thought about the smell of rain on grass and the taste of coffee in the morning, and 1,000 small things that he had always taken for granted. If he did this, he might never see any of that again. The Kethrani capital was far from Earth, and the journey was long and expensive. He would become a stranger to his own family, a face on a screen that grew older and more distant with every passing year. Maya found him in his office late one night, staring at the photograph of Earth on his wall. "You have not slept in 2 days," she said. She set a cup of something hot on his desk. It was not coffee, because they could not get real coffee this far from home, but it was close enough. "I have been thinking," Ethan said. "About the princess?" "About everything." He picked up the cup and held it in his hands, feeling the warmth spread through his fingers. "When I was young, I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to explore the stars and see things no human had ever seen. I thought it would be exciting. I thought it would be simple." Maya sat down across from him. "And now? Now I know that nothing is simple. The galaxy is full of species that have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. They look at us like we are children playing with toys we do not understand. We are nothing to them. We are less than nothing. So why are you considering this? Maya asked. Why would you give up your life for people who think so little of us? Ethan looked at her with tired eyes. Because someone has to show them they are wrong. Someone has to prove that humans are worth something. If not me, then who? If not now, then when? The response from Earth arrived the next morning. The United Nations Council had debated for hours before reaching a decision. They would support whatever choice Ethan made. They would not order him to accept, but they would not forbid it either. The message included notes from different representatives. Some were excited about the opportunity. A human in the Kethrani royal line could open doors that had been closed to humanity since first contact. Others were worried. They thought it was a trap, a way for the Kethrani to humiliate humanity on a galactic stage. Dr. Shaw read through all the messages with great care. When he finished, he looked at Ethan with serious eyes. The Council is leaving this in your hands, he said. That is a heavy burden to place on one person. They do not know what else to do, Ethan replied. None of us have ever faced anything like this before. There is no guidebook, no training program, no list of rules to follow. I have to make this choice on my own. Not entirely on your own, Dr. Shaw said gently. You have us, and you have Princess Valera. Perhaps you should speak with her again before you decide. That evening, Ethan broke protocol and visited the palace without an official invitation. He told the guards he had important information for the princess, and after many suspicious looks and whispered conversations, they let him through. A servant led him through endless corridors to the observatory tower. He found Valera standing at the telescope, looking at the stars. She turned when she heard his footsteps, and her silver eyes showed surprise. Commander Cole, she said, I did not expect to see you so soon. Has your government made a decision? They have left the decision to me. Ethan walked to the window and looked out at the night sky. I am still trying to figure out what to do. Valera was quiet for a long moment. Then she walked to a small table where a bottle and 2 glasses waited. She poured a dark liquid into both glasses and handed one to Ethan. This was my father's favorite drink, she said. He used to come here at night and look at the stars. He said it helped him think. Ethan took the glass and sipped carefully. The drink was sweet and warm, with a taste he could not identify. It was strange, but not unpleasant. Tell me about your mother, he said. You said she was a commoner. How did she meet an emperor? Valera smiled, but it was a sad smile. My father visited a colony world when he was young. He was supposed to inspect the local government and return home. Instead, he fell in love with a teacher he met at a small school. She was kind and brave, and she said things to him that no one else dared to say. He could not forget her, and the noble houses did not approve. They did everything they could to stop him. They threatened him. They tried to bribe him. When that did not work, they made my mother's life miserable. They called her names and spread lies about her. They said she had tricked the emperor with magic or drugs. Valera's voice grew quiet. She died when I was 10 years old. The doctor said it was an illness, but I know the truth. She died because they broke her heart. Ethan set down his glass. I am sorry. That should not have happened. My father changed after she died. He became harder, colder. He spent the rest of his life trying to change the laws that had hurt us, but the noble houses were too strong. He died before he could finish his work. Valera looked at Ethan with those silver mirror eyes. That is why I cannot give up. If I do, everything he fought for dies with me. And you think a human consort can help you win? I think a human consort is my only chance. Valera stepped closer to him. I will be honest with you, Commander. I do not know if we can succeed. My uncle is powerful and clever. The noble houses hate me. The odds are against us in every way. But I believe that sometimes the impossible becomes possible when people refuse to give up. Ethan thought about her words. He thought about his mother and his sister and the photograph of Earth on his office wall. He thought about all the humans who had ever been told they were not good enough, not smart enough, not strong enough. He thought about what it would mean if humanity proved them all wrong. "They will try to destroy me," he said. "Your people, your nobles. They will do everything they can to make me fail." "Yes," the Lyra agreed. "They will call you savage and primitive. They will say you are not worthy of standing beside a princess. They will try to make you believe that you are nothing." "And what do you believe?" The Lyra reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool and smooth, completely different from human skin. But her grip was strong and sure. "I believe that worth is not something you are born with," she said. "It is something you prove through your actions. My mother proved her worth every day of her life, even when the whole empire said she was worthless. I see the same strength in you, Commander Cole. I saw it the moment you walked into my meeting room." Ethan looked at their joined hands. Human and alien, two species that had almost nothing in common. And yet, standing here in this tower under the stars, he felt like he understood her perfectly. "My name is Ethan," he said. "If we are going to do this, you should probably use my first name." The Lyra's eyes widened. Then a real smile spread across her face, the first genuine smile he had seen from her. "Does this mean you accept?" "It means I am going to try." Ethan squeezed her hand gently. "I cannot promise I will win. I cannot promise anything will work out the way we hope. But I can promise that I will not give up, no matter what they throw at us." "That is all I ask," Valera said. "That is more than anyone else has ever offered me." They stood together in the observatory, watching the stars spin slowly overhead. Somewhere in that vast darkness was Earth, Ethan's home, the world he might never see again. He felt the weight of his choice pressing down on him like a physical thing, but he also felt something else. Hope, fragile and uncertain, but real. The hope that maybe, just maybe, a human and an alien princess could change the galaxy together. "When do we begin?" he asked. "The bonding ceremony will take place in 1 month," Valera said. "Until then, you will need to learn our customs, our language, our ways. It will not be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is." Valera laughed softly. It was a beautiful sound, like bells ringing in the distance. "I think I am going to like you, Ethan Cole." "I think I am going to like you too, Princess Valera." And standing there under the alien stars, the most important alliance in human history was sealed not with politics or treaties, but with two people choosing to trust each other.